Welcome back in, everybody, to Pro Football Enterprises. I'm Ben Parker. We really appreciate you joining us tonight as we take a look at the Cincinnati Bengals and doing a mock draft for them this evening. We are without the services of Shane and Austin, so we deeply miss them. One of the beauties I like about what we do here is that usually we have two or three people to have a conversation, kind of bounce things off of each other. At this time of year, I actually prefer that because this is the time of the year where most of us have taken a strong look at a lot of these draft prospects, but now we're starting to try to figure out what's best for our team and what's going to be sitting there at the different rounds at which we're picking, right? And maybe we should have a plan to trade up or trade down in certain rounds if we don't like what we're kind of seeing sitting there at certain positions. And I also love it when, we just have different opinions going on. All right, that's better. Usually that's better. So tonight it'll just be me, and we'll look forward to having Shane and Austin back on a different night. So let's get into the Cincinnati Bengals. Again, I'm not trying to drive my tent stakes too deep here, but we're going to work our way through as many rounds as we can here and try to talk about what we think we need and what's actually sitting there, because in a lot of cases, the position you need just doesn't have a player that you like sitting there. So tonight we're using PFSN's, a mock draft simulator. They are one of several that I really do enjoy using. So let's get into it. I'm not going to entertain trade offers tonight. I'm not going to go through that process, but I will mention what's available as PFSN shows up here. So right off the bat, the Bengals get offered pick 16 and 44. I would be very interested in that if I was Cincinnati. Not going to do it tonight, but I would be very interested in that. And then also, I think I like this even better. You could catch under this scenario, the Vikings would be offering 18, 49, and 97. No, I haven't sat down and done the math on that according to the trade charts. But anyway, that's what is being offered to us tonight. So let's start and take a look here. Right here's what's gotten picked already during this particular mock scenario. I won't dive into those players, but the Bengals are picking 10th. And most of you know, because most of you will be Bengals fans, but not all of you, here's what we're getting to pick from tonight. So we've got 10, 41, 72, and then a whole host of picks after that. So we've got several things to work with. That's always nice. It's okay every once in a while if you have a draft where you've only got five or six picks, but it's always nice to have seven or eight to work with. Gives you a better feeling. So my draft needs personally for the Bengals are 90% defense. Okay. And I don't think that's any surprise. Matter of fact, you can look at PFS in here as well. They list it defensive tackle, edge, safety, cornerback, linebacker, which is just about all the defensive levels, right? Most Bengals fans, I think, would agree with that. If having said that, I'm wanting to pick up the defense here. Having said that, if I see a left tackle that I like to help us in the future, I'm not going to pass that up. And if I see a pass catcher I like, especially at tight end, and I don't see a defensive player that I like as good, I'm not in the habit of passing up on good football players. So if they would be sitting high on our team's board come draft time, even if it's not necessarily the biggest need, I'm not going to pass that up. And same thing for interior offensive lineman, center, guard. If it can help us out in the future to not only save money, but make us even better than what we currently are at those positions, definitely going to be looking at those things. But for the most part, it's defense. Me personally, safety would be my number one thing that I would be looking at. I know that's not a high value spot to a lot of people, but safety is a spot I really think we could use a huge upgrade on. Having said that, lo and behold, here's Caleb Downs sitting right here for the Cincinnati Bengals to take and pick. I will probably do that. I gotta say though, as far as rebuilding this Bengals defense, I'm gonna scroll down here a little bit to a guy that is high on a lot of people's draft boards, not everyone's. Emmanuel McNeil Warren from Toledo. Obviously, we're not going to pick him at 10. But if you haven't seen the tape on this guy from Toledo, and I mean sat down and watched some film, boy, it's a lot of fun. The athleticism, the hitting ability, the range that he offers. He's not a flawless prospect, but this guy would play a tremendous safety for Cincinnati, for most teams in the NFL. But I would really like him for Cincinnati. So I'm very tempted here to want to grab McNeil Warren with pick 41. But being a mock simulator predictor, they've got him as 39 overall. He may not be there at pick 41. So, in theory, if I was going to do that, I'd probably need to trade up. I figure in the real draft, he's going to go a little bit higher than that. So, let's go back over here and look at what else is here besides just Caleb Downs, who I really enjoy. Peter Woods, Caleb Lemieux, there's possible left tackle of the future sitting right there. Francis Mauigoa over at right tackle. Mansour Delane is a name that I've kept coming back to. I've done probably, I don't know, 30 mock drafts for the Cincinnati Bengals now, and Mansour Delane is a name that I've kept coming back to. Probably the safest high-end cornerback prospect in this draft. You look at his all-around work, I think it's better than Jermod McCoy's, even though McCoy's probably got him beat on that press man island coverage, if you will. Mansour Delane to me looks like a better prospect than just about every other scenario. So Mansour Delane here, I'd be very tempted to pick Mansour Delane right here, and then just fingers crossed that McNeil Warren is sitting right there at pick 41. If we weren't live on air, I'd try to work out some kind of a trade scenario where I could move up from 41 to 30. But in the real draft, you don't even know if that's going to happen, right? We can kind of predict with these simulators that McNeil Warren's probably going to be gone by pick 37 to 41, right? Somewhere in there since they've got him sitting at 39. In the real draft, you don't know. Somebody may go up there and grab him at pick 22. There's just no way to know for sure. So just keep that in mind as you're looking here. Sonny Styles is a guy that a lot of teams are going to be interested in at linebacker. I'm not going to make that pick, but that would be a fun pick as well. And then you can see that there's some other guys here certainly worth considering. For tonight's purposes, I'm going to gamble a little bit. I actually like Caleb Downs significantly better than McNeil Warren, but if I can catch Mansour Delane and McNeil Warren for that secondary, I'm going to really feel good about myself. So I'm going to gamble here. I'm playing against the odds based on this simulator. I don't think McNeil Warren, safety from Toledo, is going to be sitting there. That's okay. There are other good guys sitting there at 41. So I'm going to gamble here a little bit. I also don't think Caleb Downs is going to be sitting here at number 10. I think somebody else is going to take him before that. So here's what we're going to do. Mansour Delane, it's a pick I've made several times for the simulators. If you're in the audience and you see another guy here that you're like, hey, I would not pass this guy up. I think he's a perfect fit for Cincinnati. Drop that in the comments. I'd certainly love to read about that. I say this so often. If you're a village troll and you've dropped by just to criticize something, yeah, by all means, satisfy yourself and move on. But most of you are very interested in what this team might be doing, and you already have some thoughts on it too. So if you've got some thoughts on who you like sitting on this board right here, and if it's not Mansour Delane, let me know who you would be picking there as well. Type that in for everyone to see on the comments. So here we go. Mansour Delane. Some of you may have already seen it. McNeil Warren already passed by on the board at like pick 32 or something. Here's our trade offers. Again, I haven't measured these. 46 and 153 for 41. That's okay. Be interested in that. This one I like 53 and 85 being offered here by the Steelers, but we're not going to do the trades tonight. So here's where McNeil Warren went. I figure in the come real draft, I figure McNeil Warren is going to go first round. I don't know how high, but I figure more than likely McNeil Warren is going to be liked by enough teams. Somebody's going to grab him. Sure enough, there he goes. So I lost the gamble. We've still got a player that we like, I like, in Mansour Delane. So let's move on a little bit here. Let's do a little position shopping, okay? Defensive tackle. Kristen Miller and Dominique Orange as well, who I wouldn't draft this high. Kristen Miller's a player I really do like, but to me, he's mainly a tough run stopper. So I'm going to hold off on that. I think I'm going to see somebody I like better at some of these other places. If we want to get pressure on the quarterback, and I know the Trey Hendrickson trades and have rumbled on for a while, right? And I know we're still waiting to see if Shamar Stewart from Texas A&M catapults forward. Like I think he has a chance to. TJ Parker is a guy sitting right here that can get to the quarterback, and we got another guy sitting here named Cassius Howell that can get to the quarterback, and another guy sitting right here, R. Mason Thomas, who can get to the quarterback. Just a heads up. All mock draft people, myself included, we all have biases. We all value certain things more than others. PFSN this year as a group has dropped down these edge rushers. Cassius Howell, even TJ Parker, but our Mason Thomas, both of these guys, and Parker too to an extent, they've dropped them down as a group. That's fine. I respect the work they do. I've got them rated a little bit higher than that, so I have no problem taking Howell or Thomas or Parker at pick 41. Linebacker sitting right here. Nobody I'm going to, guys I like, but nobody I'm going to take here at pick 41. CB, guys I like right here would be Chris Johnson. I would prefer him out of this group. Safety, which we still need. Dylan Thineman. I like Dylan Thineman, but I don't like him here at 41. I won't go into that tonight. I do like Thineman as an NFL safety, just don't like him right here. So when it comes to defense, I'm going to be looking at one of these three rushers here, Parker, Howell, Thomas. I've seen Zion Young. I just don't have him quite this high. Let's look on offense a little bit. Running back, Emmett Johnson's an interesting guy. Wouldn't take him here. Some good receivers sitting here, but receivers like our, what, ninth biggest need on the team. So I'm not going to do that. There's a couple of tight ends I like here. I'm not going to take them at this spot. Offensive tackle. Blake Miller's a guy that a lot of people like. I'm not as huge a fan of. I would not take him here at 41, but I know people who would. We have the guards. Jennings Dunker is certainly a guy I'd be interested in. Connor Liu is a guy that I'm huge on. I would absolutely take Connor Liu. Listen, I got to say this. I've said it to other teams' fan bases. Connor Liu is a guy who doesn't have a lot of athleticism. You won't see him pulling and trapping everywhere. But if you want a guy who will bull through as a center in the run game and has absolutely been the offense for Auburn at times the past 2 seasons against some of the best defensive lines that the nation has to offer, that's Connor Liu, and he holds up pretty well in pass coverage too. So I would absolutely take Connor Liu here, but he'll be available later, possibly. So we're going to let that go. We're going to go right back to defense, right here to edge. Me personally, it's Howell or Thomas, and I think Cassius Howell just gets to the quarterback quicker. So that's the pick I'm going to make. Again, I know that's another Texas A&M pick, but I think he holds up better there. If you do want a three-down guy, go R. Mason Thomas. And then TJ Parker's a guy who has potential, certainly. I feel like Cassius Howell is more consistent at getting the quarterback myself. So that's going to be the pick here. Let me know, though, if you like Parker, if you like Thomas, if you like Young, or if you just like another position here. Let me know. Tonight we'll add another Texas A&M guy, Cassius Howell. What can we get in the trade? 91 and a 27 third. I don't hate that, but I'm not going to move on that. 93 and a 27 third. That's a little bit worse. So, excuse me. Let's just shop the big board tonight. We won't position shop on this one. Still, like we've made two defensive picks, right? Which is good. We're needing defensive infusion. I also think we need defensive speed. I don't think we have enough of it. I'm not saying we're a slow defense. I do think we need to add speed here. We've done that with Mansour Delane and Cassius Howell. Okay, so LT Overton is a guy I would be interested in here, but we already picked up a smaller edge with Cassius Howell. Overton's a bigger edge. If we get to draft time, and I know that Trey Hendrickson is gone, Overton will never touch Hendrickson's ability to get to the quarterback. I'm not suggesting that. But if I knew that we just had another hole at defensive end because Hendrickson had been traded by that time for some reason, which I'm hoping we don't trade him, but if he had been, then I might entertain the idea of adding on a second edge here. Malik Muhammad's a guy I like out of Texas. Adding Jonah Coleman, running back is not necessarily position D, and I know it's not, but adding a big back in Jonah Coleman, for those of you who haven't seen Jonah Coleman's film out of Washington, grabbing him here at 72, that's about where they have him as well. That would not be a bad pick at all. I see a name, I'm passing it by. I'm going to come back to it here in a second, just letting you kind of see what all is sitting here. It's quite a group here. A lot of players I like. All right, here's the pick. I'm going to introduce a name some of y'all have heard of and some of y'all haven't. It's Jake Goldday out of Cincinnati. All right, linebacker. If you haven't seen Jake Golday, go check it out. You talk about a real man floating around there playing middle linebacker or, outside linebacker, but not edge. Jake Golday. All right. Jake Golday is a tremendous physical presence, and I would really enjoy adding him to this defense. And again, we've looked around. I'm open to any position here, including wide receiver. But we're going to take an, excuse me. Sorry, I'm battling dry throat tonight, so I apologize. Probably doing that the whole show, so I apologize. Jake Golday is a tremendous football player, and right here in this wheelhouse, this is about where he'll be expected to go. So let's do it. Let's add on draft Golday again. First names here that you want to see, trot them out. Trade we can get. We can move off of 110, move to 132 and 136. I actually would do that fairly quickly. Again, I'm not doing trades tonight, but that's a trade I would do in a heartbeat. Moving from 110 to 132 and also collecting 136, giving away a seventh round pick. I think I'm winning on the trade value chart, at least to my way of thinking. Let's see what's here. Tarian York is a good linebacker, but we already added a linebacker. Chandler Rivers out of Duke. If you haven't seen him, he does, his highlight tape is fine, but just watch his regular work. It's very good. That's a name worth adding. Bud Clark at safety, right here, Texas Christian. We haven't added a safety yet, and it's something I wanted to upgrade. Bud Clark has a habit of making big plays for Texas Christian, but even when he's not doing that, he's a very good safety just sitting back there. That's very much a name worth thinking about right here. All right, let's do a little position shopping. Running back, Nick Singleton's a guy I'll be interested in. Wide receiver, Bryce Lentz. It's a guy I would be interested in. Tight end, Eli Stowers is a guy I'm surprised is still sitting here. Stowers is probably the best pick here I like so far. Offensive tackle, offensive guard, offensive center. I see names I like, but I'm looking for anything that jumps out here. Defensive tackle. I see a name there, two names there I like. We'll come back to that at one of the later picks, hopefully. Deny Dennis Sutton and Kyron Crawford, both names very much worth taking. We will come back to these linebackers at a later pick. Chandler Rivers is very much worth taking. So is Bud Clark. But the name that I saw that stood out here for us anyway is Eli Stowers. This guy is very flexible. This guy can be used in a lot of different places, good pass catching, and was working for a Vanderbilt team who was good in 25, but Stowers' best work was in 24 for a Vanderbilt team that wasn't as talented and wasn't winning as many games, and yet still he shined against some very talented Southeastern Conference teams. So I know what we have at tight end. I haven't checked out what we're going to lose in free agency. That may change here in a week or two anyway, depending on who Cincinnati does or does not sign. But for now, tonight, Eli Stowers, I think, based on the fact, part of this is based on the fact that we've already made three defensive picks. If we hadn't made, let's say we hadn't made any picks yet, and this was literally our first pick, I would probably actually lean toward Chandler Rivers out of Duke or Bud Clark out of, at safety. But we've already added three defensive guys. So with that in mind, I'm going to go here to tight end. We'll pick out Eli Stowers out of Vanderbilt. A very solid pick. All right. Pick 188. Rayshon Benny is a name that I thought would be there, and he is. This is a heck of let me look up his size just to make sure before I. Yeah, 6'3", 296. Not the biggest defensive tackle. They're certainly bigger, but this is a big defensive tackle that we would want to add to this defense. We could certainly use it. Jashawn Barham, if I didn't already have Demetrius Knight floating around, I would be interested in adding Jashawn Barham. And I know they don't play the same, they shouldn't be playing the same position. They often do. But if you want to have your defense be meaner, tougher, and more physical, Jashawn Barham is the guy to add. I would want to add that, but we've already added Gold Day, and I've already got Shamar Stewart, and I've already got Demetrius Knight. So with that in mind, Barham's not going to be the guy that we add here. Let's show you what all's sitting here at some of these positions. Here's offensive tackle. A couple of names I might come back to later. Offensive guard. Again, a couple of names we might catch in the sixth and seventh round. Center. A couple of names I like there. Wide receiver, for what it's worth. We will not draft Chase Roberts tonight, but Chase Roberts is very much worth drafting. So is DeJon Stribling, and so is CJ Daniels. Let's move back to the defense. Benny and Barham, both Michigan players. Those guys are both very much worth drafting at this spot right here. I see a couple more names that we will come back to later on tonight. So anyway, here it is. Rashawn Benny, we're going to add him at defensive tackle into the mix. This is a guy that very much makes plays right in the middle of the defensive tackle, right in the middle of the defensive line. So you'll want to keep that name in mind here. So how we're doing on needs? Well, we know CB's a need. We did hit that. Edge is a need. We hit that. Defensive tackle is somewhat of a need. We hit that. Tight end, maybe not necessarily need. We hit it anyway. Linebacker need. We've hit that. It's okay if you don't hit all your needs in the draft, but obviously we would prefer to. Pick 198. Should still have some similar names to pick from here. Chase Roberts still there, but we don't need him. Jashawn Barham at this point is a guy who we're gonna end up drafting some of the same positions no matter what. So Barham's a guy I may take just based on value here. Looking at safety, Boykin, Catalan, Thomas. These guys are all fine, and most of them will get picked up at the last half of the draft. They're not guys I'm coveting at this point. Ephesians Prysock, if you want a big corner, I kind of hate to add that because I'm wanting to add speed, but if you do want a big corner, Prysock is certainly a guy worth considering. Betcher right here at linebacker. If we hadn't already drafted a linebacker, I'd probably snatch him up immediately, but we did just already draft a linebacker. Let's check out the offensive line real quick here. I'm gambling a little bit here. I see a couple of names I like, but I'm hoping I can catch them later. Okay. I told you my reasons earlier for not drafting Barham 10 picks ago, but I like this guy. He's physical, he's a tone setter. He works the run game well off the edge, and he does get some pressure off the edge, and he does get out in space. Not so much in pass coverage necessarily, but he does get out in space, and he does help blow up screens and things like that. So we're going to add Jashawn Barham right here for Michigan. Here we go. Last two picks. Pick 222 for Cincinnati. What have we done? CB edge, linebacker, tight end, defensive tackle, edge. All right. Emil Wagner, offensive tackle, Notre Dame. That's a name that I'm well familiar with, 6'5", 302. Would not start for us this year, but this is a guy I'm a big believer in drafting at least one offensive lineman a year on average, really a little bit higher than that just for pipeline purposes. You're not literally going to draft an offensive lineman every year, but that basically should be the mindset of most franchises. unless you just have a tremendously set offensive line that is also young. So Emil Wagner, tackle from Notre Dame, is certainly one guy I'm about to pick here. The offensive guard I was looking at is gone. Reed Adams from Texas A&M would be a great pick just as far as upside goes. You don't get too much upside in these rounds. And the center I was looking at is gone as well. So we're going to do it. Emil Wagner, Notre Dame. Go check out his film. Take a look at him. Not a bad pick here for pick 222. And this will bring us to our last pick. We've only done a couple of offensive picks. That's fine. We were targeting defense, and we were wide open to taking offensive guys if they were there. CJ Daniels is a receiver worth drafting, especially in this round. That's a guy worth drafting. Eric Gentry is a guy that if you want a very tall, I believe he's 6'6". Yeah, 6'6", 220, coming out of Southern Cal. Got some talent, but hasn't hit yet. It's not a bad grab here for this. Bryce Bedger, linebacker from Oregon. Let's see. I've only picked up one linebacker, with Barham really being an edger. I tell you what, I'm very tempted by this right here. Brian Betcher. If you haven't seen him, go check it out. Just go check out the highlights. I know some of you don't have the time to bury into it, but just check out the highlights. Drew Aller. If we didn't already have Joe Burrow sitting here, I would just go ahead and grab Drew Aller. He's going to get drafted. The talent is there, just has not delivered. There's other guys here. There's plenty of guys here to take. CJ Daniels, I would be interested in, but Bryce Betcher's the guy here. And I know we've already picked up a linebacker, and I know we've already got a couple of linebackers on the team, including Demetrius Knight. But again, it's always a bad habit to pass up good football players that you like. So the guys that are higher on your board, your team's board, you should largely stick to that unless unless it's close and the position of need is just a shade or two behind, right? In this case, Betcher is the guy. I expect Betcher to go a little bit higher than this, honestly. So that's it. Let's do a little recap and then we'll get out of here. So Mansour Delane, first round. I gambled right. I was hoping to catch safety McNeil Warren in the second round. We lost that gamble. It's okay. Got Cassius Howell. Again, I know not everybody has these edgers that high, but some people have them higher. You'll find consistently in the first round, late first round, where some people still have Cassius Howell, R. Mason Thomas, and T.J. Parker. So again, there's arguments to be made that we shouldn't have even picked an edge, or that we shouldn't have picked that edge, but that's where we went. Jake Golday at linebacker. You're gonna love watching Jake Golday. That's the one that I think most of you are gonna love the most. Eli Stowers, very flexible tight end, good hands, decent speed, not the fastest guy ever, but again, a very workable tight end. Benny and Barham, I wasn't trying to get Michigan defensive players, but these guys are legit. I mean, these guys are tough, tone-setting players, and so is Bryce Betcher out of Oregon, and then we add in Emil Wagner, who could be a starter maybe in 2 seasons. Probably not going to be a guy starting for us this year. Okay, that's the Cincinnati Bengals. I have run, again, probably 30 draft simulations for the Bengals. I really enjoyed doing that. They definitely need a defensive pick me up. Don't be surprised though. Sometimes the guy you need, and you guys all know this, sometimes the position you need is not there at the position you're drafting. So keep that in mind as we get closer to the draft, and of course, free agency will affect some of this as well. All right, that's it. This is Pro Football Entertainment. Thank you very much. Hope you have a great one, and goodbye.